Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community Oceania Hoon Dok Hae, and together with Catherine Whitley from New Zealand, we'll be offering the message today. And today is Saturday, the 14th of May, or the 14th of April in the 10th year of Chongyalguk. Let's begin by offering a bow to our Heavenly Parent and true parents. Kyombe. And let's recite our family pledge both in Korean and English. Thank you.
가족맨세 1. 천일국 주인, 우리 가족은 참사랑을 중심하고 본연 땅을 찾아 본연의 창조 이사인 지산 천국과 천산 천국을 창건할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 1. Our family, the owner of Chongyalguk, pledges to seek our original homeland and build the kingdom of God on earth and in heaven, the original ideal of creation, by centering on true love. Just join me in prayer. I'll offer the opening prayer. Our most beloved Heavenly Parent, we're grateful to be able to be gathered here together as a community of Oceania. They're really in attendance to our true mother, who's striving to truly fulfill, the kingdom of heaven on earth. Chongyalguk, we are already in the era after the coming of heaven, and our true mother is really desperate to see that the kingdom is fully, substantially realized. Our true father desired to spend even one day in Chongyalguk, but he was unable to, and our mother is continuing to go the way that was planned by heaven. We know there are a lot of mistakes happened in human history, beginning with the very first, with Adam and Eve, who were deceived and tricked into losing themselves to selfishness and to become slaves to Satan. Now human history has gone its full course, with many martyrs and saints and sages, and with the only begotten Son coming in the form of Jesus. And then today, with the success of our true parents, the marriage of the Holy Lamb happening in 1960, and the end of satanic dominion once and for all, with the transfer of blood lineage being provided through the grace of the blessing. So we're so grateful to be blessed and to be on your side. And we want to invest ourselves 100% and completely, and to do so every day, and to really make the necessary changes in ourselves so that the environment around us becomes the environment of heaven. So we ask your presence as we gather here together to listen to your words, to come closer together, and to really fulfill our responsibilities. So thank you for your guidance, and we ask your presence together in our collective names and in our names, John and Shazir and me as a blessed central family. Thank you, everyone. So let's go. Give a warm welcome to Catherine as she shares this morning. Thank you.
Oh. Oh, doesn't seem to work. Oh, here. Is it okay now?
Yep, it looks good. Okay. Thank you.
Right, good morning, everyone. I've called this, the first shall come last and the last shall come first, from Matthew 19:30. I've been listening to everybody's testimonies and listened to how they've met the church and met true parents, and I'll just go on with my testimony. Oh.
Yeah.
Here. I've called it this part the circle of life. I was in London the first time by myself, and I was going on the underground, and I read this, and I wanted to go to a certain place, and I had to go use the circle line, which is a yellow line in the middle that goes around the circle. And I went on the circle line. I only had to go 2 stops, and then I had to change and get onto another one. So I jumped on the circle train, and I was supposed to go right, but I didn't know that the train also went left. So I went the long way around to get to those 2 stops. I should have only gone 2 stops, but I went about 20 stops more to change planes. And that's what seems to have been going on with how I've lived my life, basically, going the wrong way. So, right, this is my father. He was in the World War II, and he fought in Egypt. He went as a 19-year-old in the first echelon out of New Zealand. When he came back, there were basically no jobs, and there was no trauma support at all for the men that came back from the war. The women had taken over the jobs and things. And so a lot of them became bus drivers, taxi drivers, or farmers. And they became really great buddies. They were really good friends together because they had nobody to share their hearts with when they came back. They didn't share it with the people. They shared it amongst themselves. So we didn't really know what went on in the war. And the RSA was a great place for them to share their hearts together. There were lots of Christmas picnics we had, and everybody was your aunt and uncle. We grew up, and they were all treated you as their own children. And it was a great time to be alive at that time. I joined the Brownies, Girl Guides, who played softball, cricket, netball. Instead of having a computer, we wrote letters. I had pen pals in Japan, the Philippines, and in the Cook Islands. And a lot of the friends that we made in those times, they're still our friends today. I come from a family of 5, 4 girls, and finally there was a boy. I was supposed to be the boy. I was number 2 and supposed to be the boy, but unfortunately number 5 was the boy at the end. I come from a real mixture of ancestors: English, Scottish, French, German, Irish, and Aborigine. And then reflecting back on my childhood, I found that this was really, really a great time, when the time was prepared for the second coming of the Messiah. It was really a great time to be alive. We never locked our doors. Everybody was your neighbor. All the neighbors knew what you were doing. They could tell you off if they wanted to. There was no problem. There was just great. It was a great time. I found it was a great time growing up, and I felt it was a really good time for people to come to know and understand one another. If we had a meal prepared and then somebody appeared, there was just a plate put out for them. And if you were at somebody else's place around the neighborhood, the same happened there. We didn't have a telephone. We just communicated by word of mouth. So as a baby, I was christened in the Methodist church. But where we lived, there was no churches around. And so there were missionaries the Baptist missionaries who had been in China, and they came out of China. So they opened up a church in their living room, in their lounge. And so we sat there and went through Sunday school and things there from the age of 4 to about the age of 13, I was there. Gradually, they built a hall next door to their house. And then later on, the Baptist church was built, a larger one, which is still existing today. And I think I must have been quite precocious kid, because I used to ask so many questions. And my Sunday school teacher got so upset with me. She said one day, she said, just look, have faith and believe in what I am saying. But I couldn't really believe what she's saying because it didn't seem to go in with my heart. And at the same time, we had Scripture Union. You may have heard of it. We had like tests and exams every year. And I didn't do very well in there, but I thought I did well because I gave the answers that I thought were the right answers, but they weren't according to what they thought. The first book I ever bought cost me 26 shillings. It was my Bible, and I still have that today. On the 8th of July, 1961, I gave my life to Jesus. I wanted to be one with Jesus, to know and understand it. And there was a passage in the Bible, John 1:12. Anyway, that's the day I gave my life to Jesus for the first time. And at that time, I was in a Baptist church in Belmont, and a lady, Mrs. Mills, was singing this song, Just As I Am, Without One Plea, that the Lord gave his life for me or something. And it was always saying, I come, I come, I come. So I found I was coming. And that was really, I used to think, how would I be if I had been alive when Jesus was on the earth? What would I have done to serve? How would I have looked after Jesus, basically? Later on in the Baptist church, they wanted me to be baptized, fully baptized in the Baptist church, and trained to be a Sunday school teacher. And they gave me a form to complete. There were 3 points on it. The first point was I wouldn't drink alcohol. That was no problem. The second point was no smoking. That was no problem. But the third was a huge problem. I couldn't accept it. It was no dancing. And my parents were dancers, and we loved dancing, and I loved ballet, and I loved all sorts of dance. But I couldn't sign that form because of those 3 conditions. 2 were okay, but the third one was not. So I left the Baptist church, and I went to the Methodist church, because the Methodist church had actually been built in our area. So I decided to go there also because they danced as well. But I used to go to the Methodist church, and we went to a camp one time. There were a whole lot of us, maybe about nearly 200 young people. And at the camp, they found that a boy and a girl were sleeping together. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is happening at a camp? How can I find God? This is not right. So I decided, well, I have to find God myself. I'm not going to find it in these 2 churches. I have to find God for myself in my own way. So I checked out the different Eastern religions, and I didn't really gel with them. So, this is my family. I was known as the hairdresser in the area because I used to like cutting everybody's hair. I would just chop a piece off the front here and chop a piece off the back. So they had a veranda here and a palm tree growing up here. This is my family on the one side with my mother. I haven't got my brother there. And then my mother and father divorced later on. And this is my step family. We had, my mother married a Danish man down in the bottom there. And in that photograph, he's 101. And our family was really the League of Nations, because my stepsisters, one married an English man, one married a New Zealander from Scottish descent, one married a Maori, and one married a Samoan. So we were really quite a League of Nations. In the end, there were 9 of us, 8 girls and 1 boy in the family, combined family. So going to look for God myself, I took off overseas in 1968. I went to England, and I had a job as a farm. I was on the books as a farm secretary in a little village called Itchen Abbas. It was near Winchester in Hampshire. but I was actually a nanny, and I was looking after a little girl, 18-month-old girl from the Caroline Price, and she was a little darling. I went on a month's trial, and I stayed there 2 years. The trial never ended. The grandparents of the little girl I was looking after were lords and ladies, and he worked in the House of Lords as a Minister of Transport, and he was also secretary to the Queen. In 1970, I went with my girlfriend's brother and his wife. We went around in an old Ford Anglia, all through Europe, through the communist countries, through France, Switzerland, Spain, Austria, Germany, Italy, Greece, Hungary, Turkey, Bulgaria. We traveled around in there, and it was more of a religious tour than it was just it was more of a religious tour for all of us concerned. We went to the Vatican, we went to Avignon, Chartres Cathedral, we went to the mosques in Turkey, we went through the communist countries where there was no religion. We experienced that life there. And when I came back to England, I started working for the friends of the lady I worked for in Winchester. I worked in Ascot as a nanny, looking after their children. And it was one day I was going through Windsor. I was with a Spanish girl, and I met Marjorie Hill. She kind of appeared in front of us and started talking about history or some different things. And I didn't hear from her I gave her my name and address and phone number. And I didn't hear from her for about a month or so. And in the meantime, I was needed to get my visa to go to stay in England a bit longer. And usually what I did when I needed to change my visa, I'd just go on a trip across to Europe, a day trip or 2 days, and then my visa was renewed. Anyway, then finally I got a phone call from Marjorie, and she said, would you like to meet the Unified Families? And so I went to a place, I think it was called Dorney Cottage. I'm not quite sure, it's out of Ascot, out of Eton somewhere. And I met Doris and Dennis Orme. They were the leaders in New Zealand at that time, and in England at that time. And I found out that this was the third time that the church was trying to be established in England. I had one day off a week and a weekend off a month when I was working my job. So I went down to Rowlane's farm one weekend, and we were preparing the farm for visitors. The Vanderstocks were coming from Holland. And so we just cleaned the house and got it prepared for them. I didn't really study the divine principle through at all. I heard the beginning and the end, but nothing in the between. And when I knew I was going to go back to New Zealand, I thought, well, I bought a divine principle, which was Young Eun Kim's version, and I had a copy of my pledge. Unbeknown to me, the family that I was working for, the original family, they were investigating at the high level the church. And they said to me, I would have to leave the country or I'd get deported. But I didn't say to them that I'd actually applied for my visa to be extended through the Home Office. And one day I was looking after the children in Windsor, and they said, oh, we're going to go to a wedding in Wales. Could you take the children and spend the time while we're in Wales, take the children down to Winchester, and for the week, for the time we're at the wedding in Wales. So I took the children, they went off to Wales, we waved them off to Wales, and then I went down to Winchester. And I think I was in Winchester in the farm there about an hour and a half, and in walked my employees from Windsor. That was the end of my job. So I stayed on in England. I thought, well, you know, I stayed on there until I left the country. And I decided that, okay, I will go back to New Zealand, but I will come back again and I will do what I want to do. And I'm not going to do, you know, I'm not going to have the pressure of what you put me through as, you know, trying to deport me from the country. I wasn't deported. These are the two children I looked after in Windsor, Abigail and Miranda. And then they had another baby, Louise. They were lovely little kids. So I went back to New Zealand. And then I went back to England by ship. That was a big mistake. I've called this part diverted for 10 years. The mistake was going back by ship. I went back with a friend of mine and she wanted to go by ship. So I thought, oh, well, I'll go with her. I went back to England, but I didn't meet up with the church. I came back to New Zealand and I married a Greek. And we bought a house and later we had our son. My son, I'm really quite proud of him. He has become for the second time in a row, he was nominated as the best pastry chef in Greece for the second time in a row this year. So anyway, I went, after you've had your child, you go and have a checkup at the doctor's. And while I was waiting in the waiting room to be seen by the doctor, I had this realization, and it was, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've caused God such a pain. It was like a pain going through my heart, and I could feel it. I'd caused God such a huge pain, giving birth to a child who wasn't of his lineage, and it could have been of God's lineage, and it wasn't. And so at that point, I thought, well, what do I do? And I vowed to God that I would never have another child unless he was a blessed child. As I mentioned, my husband was Greek, and he was actually given by his uncle to his mother, who became his mother. They were actually Greeks living in Turkey, and they were kicked out of Turkey and they came as refugees to Greece. I made a promise to my in-laws that I would vow that they would see their grandson every 2 years. And also we supported them financially from New Zealand. I kept this promise up to them all the time. Then in Easter 1983, I was watching TV, the Jesus of Nazareth on TV, and I was just really caught up in it all. And I just said to Heavenly Father, look, what do you want me to do with my life? It wasn't all a bed of roses. But anyway, I said, what do you want to do with my life? And the answer came very clear. You go to the Unification Church before you reach the age of 36. So this was April, and my birthday was in August. And time went on, and the months were passing, the weeks and the days were passing. I drove past the church and tried to find out different things. I looked up, I had the phone number, and it was getting closer and closer. And I thought, well, I didn't achieve it 10 years ago. I have to achieve it this time, and I have to go through and follow through what I should have done 10 years before. But when I phoned up the church, they didn't want to know me. They weren't interested in me at all, because Marie Gorka, or Marie Ryan, had been kidnapped in Auckland by her family. And the members were really struggling to try and find out where Marie was. They were trying to find Marie, and I was trying to get to the church. And it wasn't until sometime Pam Resnick phoned me from the lawyer's office, and we made an appointment. So I managed to meet, Sandy Hartman was the leader at that time. I managed to meet Sandy on the 15th of August. The 14th of August was the day that Marie was released. They found her up in Wangaporoa, and she was released, and she was in the centre. So when I went on the 15th of August, I met Pam, Sandy, Mandy, and also Mandy Midorikawa, and also Marie. And I'm ever so grateful to those 4 sisters each one of them was special. If it hadn't been for them and showing me so much love and heart, I don't know how I would have managed to get through. My husband gave me 1 week, one evening a week for 6 weeks that I could go and find out about the church and learn and understand more, to find out what I had been thinking about. Was it real? Was it true? Was everything, everything right? He didn't want to know anything that I had to say to him. He would stop strangers in the street, and one day he spoke to 18 strangers in the street and said, "What do you know about Sun Young Moon?" And everything was negative. He bought in a deprogrammer for me. Then he stopped financial support. Luckily, I was working. And then he decided to go back to Greece to spend some time there. So I thought that was a good idea to go back and see with his mother. So my son and I were left in New Zealand and to get on with life and to find out things. And then I met him at the airport when he came back, and he said, "Are you going to still go to that church?" And I said, "Yes." And 2 days later, I got a letter from a solicitor to say that I was to have nothing to do with the Unification Church, the Mormon Church, the Jehovah's Witnesses, and other churches. Otherwise, I'd lose custody of my child. I wouldn't have anything to do with my family. So I kept praying about it, and always it was to stay. Always the answer was stay together, stay together, stay together. But in the end, what I did with the letter, I went to the churches and said, "What would you do if this came to court?" And they asked, "Has he been to our church?" I said, "No, he hasn't. He hasn't been to any other church. He doesn't want to go to any churches." So they would support me. But finally, on the 20th of May, 1987, we were divorced. And I found that this was quite funny. It was the day of the love of God. And we went back. He went back to Greece, and he married a Greek lady in 1992. I've met her, and she's a lovely lady. In 1988, I went to the Seoul Olympics. I was fortunate to go there. And this was the first time I met Father was at Hoon Dok. And I saw Father, and I thought, wow, you really are my father. And we even look alike. Here's this Korean man, here's this Kiwi person. Anyway, this photograph is really special. It was on the 3rd of October, 1988, and Father was walking up and down, up and down, up and down at Hoon Dok, and he was giving us, it was about the day of the nation of the unified world. I think that was the day it was there. And he was walking up and down and up and down and up and down, and I just thought, oh, Father, I wish that you would just stand still for a moment so that I could take a photo of you for my brothers and sisters back in New Zealand. So you've got to be very careful what you think in the presence of true parents, I found. Father was walking up and down, and then all of a sudden he stopped right in front of me, and and he said to me, "Okay, now." I got my camera, I went click, and this is the photograph. So I've just learned to listen. Be careful what you think in front of true parents. What you say, what you think, really. Oh, I've lost this now. How can I get down? Okay. This was the group of us all from Oceania and also Asia. We were sitting there and had our photo taken with true parents. There was no other sisters. I was very fortunate, and you could see you can see some faces there. I'm sure you recognize Barry Knoll, Jean-Yves Crokinole, Trevor Newman, John von Dinklage, Reverend Kim, Robert Kittle, what's her name? Tracy DeGore. No. And the missionary to the Solomon Islands, Peter Bayet Zarotz, Jeffrey Prentice. And I wanted to actually sit beside Mother, but I sat beside Father. It's nice. In 1992, I was blessed with a Filipino Christian minister. It was strange. You know. I went on a visit to the Philippines to meet up with him, but he wasn't there, and even though he said we'd be there at that time, he wasn't there. So it was really strange. And at that time, there were the original missionaries the original missionaries were in the Philippines from Japan, America, and Germany, and they weren't united at all. And while I was there, I got a fax from Pam Resnick, because at that time I was working in the office in Parnell, and I got a fax from Pam to say that, when are you coming back? Because True Parents are coming to New Zealand. So they had all read this letter. They all read this fax. So when is Mother coming? When is she coming? And I said, well, you know as much as I do. You've read the fax. So they said, do you think it'd be possible for True Parents to come to the Philippines on their way to New Zealand? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything really. So they arranged for True Parents to come to the Philippines before they came to New Zealand. And then I went back to the Philippines again in 1993, soon after that. And on the second visit, I found that I met up with one of the missionaries, and they were on their way to Russia. And the only missionary that was left there was the German one. The leadership, True Parents had changed the leadership in the Philippines. And on the second visit, I went to Mindanao, and I met up with my spouse, and he didn't really want to know me either. So it was really quite, I had to reflect, my reflections back on my thing to the Philippines was, from that point when True Parents went, they changed the leadership, and the Philippines has really gone ahead in all ways. I was in the top picture, we were at a camp and lecturing, and we're doing Tongu Mudo, no, one Wado at that point, I think it was. And it was lovely. It was a lovely time, and I really enjoyed the time in the Philippines with the members there. In 1998, I was reblessed to an Indian professor. And I've got on there, you inherit the sins of your ancestors. So we arranged that I would go to India, and I was met at the airport by Tim Miller. He was the National Messiah to Bhutan, and also Umberto Angelucci. He had been in Afghanistan, and him and his family were brought out of Afghanistan, and they were in India at that time. And on the airport on the way back, they told me that the Indian professor didn't want to have anything to do with me at all. What do I want to do? I said, oh, I don't know. I'll just fast for 3 days, and then I'll give you my answer. So I arrived in India and fasted for 3 days. And I remember what my uncle had told me the week before I left for India. My uncle told me that my grandfather, his father, had been in India and in Bombay, and he had saved the life of an Indian and saved this person from drowning. That was a good point. But he also told me that my grandfather had stolen a ruby out of a Hindu temple in India. And I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen when I get to India? At the time. So anyway, after 3 days, I said to Tim and Umberto that I would stay. I had 6 months there. I would stay, and I would pour my heart out to India. And I was prepared even to die in India. That was the heart that I had. After fasting for 3 days, I said, I will stay here. I will love India with all my heart, and I will be prepared to die for the sake of India. India was a lovely country. There are many refugees there. I was in charge of lecturing, so I gave many lectures, and we were giving out holy candies, and there was a blessing there, and I went to Hariwa with a Sambat. He was from Armenia, and also a Japanese sister. The three of us went to this place, and we were there for 3 weeks, blessing the people. And then there was a change of leadership in India, and I was asked to go out and buy 2 watches for the leaders that were going out. And if you go to buy, being a white, blonde, blue eyes, and that, people put the prices up. And I had about $40 to buy some watches. Before I came back with nothing. And when I came, I was actually given a beautiful Christian Barnard watch before I went to India, and I'd never used it. So I said to the leader, look, I've got this watch, I can give this to the wife. And another lady said, I've got a man's watch, we will give these together. So we had 2 watches that we could give to the outgoing leaders. And then soon after that, my time was up, and they asked me if I would like to stay on longer. And I said, no, I have to go back to New Zealand for some reason. So at the airport, I asked Umberto, how much is the departure tax? And he said, X amount of rupees, I think it was. And I had this money, and I said, look, I took out maybe $30. I took out 30, whatever it was. And I said, look, this money can't leave India. It's got to stay here. Keep it. Use it here. I can't take anything back with me. So I left India, and when I went through, I didn't have to pay any departure tax at all. So I came back to New Zealand with this money in my hand. While I was in India, I was giving lectures, and I loved giving the lectures. And when I was there, the guests could feel the presence of this lady, and they'd often comment, this lady, she's here with us. And I said, yeah. And then just as we were going up to Hariwa, just before we were leaving, I had to go and lie down on my bed on the floor upstairs. And I went up there just to lay down on the floor. And as I was laying on there, I shut my eyes, and this lady came up to me and she gave me a kiss on the left and the right cheek. And it was like saying, go in peace, I'm with you. And my reflection on India was, okay, I hope that I was able to repay my grandfather's mistakes. You know, it said we inherit the sins of our ancestors. So I hope that through that I was able to repay my grandfather's mistakes. So I was quite happy with that. And this is Father's words. I think once you report before God, you must follow through no matter what, no matter how difficult it may be. Whatever you do, once you pledge to God, you must resolve it. If you live with this kind of attitude, you will never fail. However, to reach that goal, it will be a real battle. So don't ever give up, just keep going. And I was remembering what Reverend Yamada said yesterday about the members who have left the church. We just have to love them with all our heart. And through that, you know, it took me 10 years. I hope it doesn't take that long with the other people, but it takes time and love for everyone. So we can't give up on each one. And I just laughed when Mary yesterday mentioned about, I hope it isn't so hard, but then I had this on the screen already prepared. So I think, don't give up. God loves you all, and we have a lot to do. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Catherine. Wow, really a beautiful life you have. I'll just stop the sharing. It's all right. Yep, it's okay. Thank you. Wow. Yeah, it's yeah, many different countries, many different experiences, being a nanny around the world. It's yeah, quite an amazing life that you've had, and I feel connected because you got married to a Greek, though, but I don't know why.
Yeah, Kalimera Canis, can I say?
Yeah, so thank you. I'll just open up to others who'd like to make a comment or share. So thank you, Catherine. Yes, Randall, go ahead.
Catherine, I was wondering, what was it about the principle that caught your attention? Because once you were, hooked, it seems like that you did not let go.
No. What hooked me, I never heard the history. I never went through any of the history at all. And when I understood the history, that was really God's heart. How God had suffered so much for so long. And that was the main point. The history was the point that got me, and God's suffering heart. How time and time and time again, people had caused God so much pain. That's the point. The history was the main thing. History was God's story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Such a moving and beautiful testimony. We lost for words. But just something that struck me when you're talking about, I guess, New Zealand, when growing up in New Zealand, and you leave your doors open and you're always interacting with your neighbours. It's like a different world. Well, it was like that also in Australia when I was growing up as a kid. And we were just in our neighbours' houses, that we were just like one family. We'd go, so it's a different world now. Things have changed so much. But yeah, it was a very beautiful, prepared Christian environment at that time. Yeah, anyway, thank you again for amazing testimony. Very beautiful, very moving. Thank you, Catherine. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Greg, got your hand up there now? Go ahead.
Okay. Yes, I've known Kathy for many years. Yeah, I might have been in Rarotonga. I think I was in Rarotonga when she came around in the 80s. And just wanted to say she's actually a beautiful person, good heart, very kind, and yeah, very gentle, and persevered all these years. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah, and anyway, she did come to Rarotonga while I was there in '83, probably, with her son, and her son might have been about 9 or 10. We had a fun time. I had a little mini, one of those mini Morris, tiny mini Morris, one of my the second car, and it's so old that we drove it. It was raining. We had an umbrella on top of the car, the roof, somehow, and then also at the bottom, the base of the car, it had holes in the car. Luckily, it's a hot tropical island, so it didn't matter. But anyway, yeah, Kathy and I really have done a lot of things together, and it's always been actually a pleasure to be with her or to do things with her, because she's really giving. You know, at some time, probably for 10 years, she was writing birthday cards to everyone in New Zealand for a long time. She made them and gave them to everyone every year. And it's incredible. And she makes those beautiful cards. So she does a lot of things. Yes, a great heart. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Thank you, Kathy. Very beautiful testimony.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you. Got your hand up there, Barbara? Go ahead.
Oh, Catherine, that was just so wonderful. I have so many questions now. I want to sit down with you for a day and go over each little thing. So you're not blessed with anybody now? Oh, sweetie pie. All right. That was what an incredible journey your life is. It just makes me cry, and I'm just so thrilled to know you, and thank you for sharing. And what's wrong with the men? Anyway, thank you.
I think that I was blessed with people who were in a similar situation, divorced and had families. And I think it was really quite hard for them. Yeah. I think all the people who get blessed young and no complications, that's the way to go. And with everybody. Because how precious your blessing is, and the family, and that is so precious. And
yes,
always,
absolutely. And
yeah, always,
sorry.
even if they've gone astray, just keep loving them. They'll come back.
Yeah. That's true. And is your son well, darling?
Yeah, he's in Greece.
Okay, all right, okay.
And he's in Greece, and we had a big conflict because he didn't want to have anything to do with the church. One of our members slapped him on the face when he was about 10, and he didn't want to have anything to do with the church. So he had that bitter resentment all his life. And it was 2019. I went to Greece just before the COVID. And we had a chance. He was on Santorini, and I went over there and stayed with him. And it was just the two of us. And we had a really good heart-to-heart talk. We got out of all the junk and rubbish and stuff, and cleared our hearts. And that's necessary to do. And then from that point, he became, in 2020, he was awarded the best pastry chef in Greece.
Ah, yes.
And then last year, just this year, he was also awarded the best pastry chef in Greece, again, from a higher thing. So he's worked hard, and he's done it all on his own hard work and his own things. So we've become, since that point that we cleared our hearts together, he has been recognized for his talents and things that he's got. And I think it was, who was it? Daniel mentioned that True Mother flew a French pastry chef make the desserts for True Mother. And I thought, oh, I'd like my son to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like him to do something for True Mother. But it's still a work in progress.
Yes, I understand. Thank you so much, darling. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got a couple of people. First, Silvana, and then Rex. Go ahead, Silvana.
Thank you, Catherine. If I understood correctly, then you got rejected 3 times. Your divorce, but when you went to India, and the Indian professor did not want to even know you, if that had happened to me, I'm sure I would have said, okay, then bye, here I go. But you stayed in India. You just incredible heart to even die for the country. your concern was to restore your grandparents' mistake. Like, I think it's unbelievable. It's I don't know many people that would have stayed with God. That I don't know many people that would have not accused God or there's something wrong here, that's not for me. Like I don't know people that would not have given up in your circumstance, but you're still here, and every day is such a beautiful presence and beautiful spirit. Well, thank you very much. I'm really inspired.
We can't give up on God.
Thank you. Go ahead, Rex. Yeah.
Thank you, Sister Catherine. And I think you might remember my wife, Nelly, from the Solomon Islands. Yes. So she also shared with me her short experience with you in Australia. So before leaving, maybe you might remember the word you said to her, Nelly, be strong, take care, I'm going back to New Zealand. So listening to your experience, so really wonderful, wonderful. And also, I'd like to, tomorrow, Sunday, Solomon will celebrating 40 years of our Unification Church in the Solomon. So all of you were so wonderful. Sister Catherine, for your support to Nelly, as you know, she was just alone. And Uncle John, our great grandfather, Uncle Gregson, and Uncle Paul, all of you. So we are so grateful to you. So tomorrow we'll celebrate the 40 years. 40 years, so it's so important. Already the church is growing up. We still need your heart, your support, as we wish to grow up here. Australia, Uncle Mark the Field. So your sweat, your tears, tomorrow 40 years. We'll communicate also with Mr. Beat in Switzerland. We'll send him a message. And also Stephen in London. So thank you very much, Australia. Thank you, New Zealand. Thank you, Oceania. Thank you. Uncle Chiro.
Thank you, Rex. I remember Nellie. I've got a beautiful photo of Nellie.
Okay.
Yeah, a lovely photo of her. And also, my grandmother wanted to be a missionary to the Solomon Islands.
Okay.
And so she's been liberated, and I said to her, and blessed, I said, please go to the Solomon Islands and work there, fulfill the dream that you wanted to do before you got married. So I hope that she's with you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, Sister Mandy, Sister Mary. So three of you, we feel really so grateful to everyone who have invested for Solomon Island. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Actually, we've come to that time for us to offer our unison prayer. So thank you, Catherine, and I'll just share the screen and let's pray together. Jew. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again, Catherine. And have a great day and see you all tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you
you.
very much.
Hey,
Thank you.
thank you very much, Cassie.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Oh,
Thank you,
good
Catherine.
morning.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you so
my
much.
elder. Miss Miss Arai, good morning.
Thank you for the voice.
Yes.
You.
Say hello
you.
to Auntie.
Yes, and happy 40th anniversary to Solomon's.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy
that's
anniversary.
Thank you very
You're looking
much.
good,
Thank
Douglas.
you.
Yeah,
And
see you
very
all.
beautiful.
Bye.